I'm Shamji. Join us here on WESN for another Diwali Passport presentation.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
When it comes to Pira and Laddu, I just use Chatak's Laddu and Pira Mithai Mix. It's a combination of traditional ingredients in one pack. I don't spend all that time preparing different ingredients like Ma. 3/4 of the work is done. So now I can make fresh, delicious Pira and Laddu in about 15 minutes with the convenience of Chatak's Laddu and Pira Mithai Mix. Now Ma's Kitchen is a Chatak kitchen. Now available Gulab Jamun Instant Mithai Mix.
Diwali Passport, brought to you by Chatak Food Products and Anand brand wax diyas.
WESN.
Any man who has to say, I am the king, is no true king. It's a line that I find very humorous and interesting, and a quote from popular culture that I very much love to utilize because there's truth in those words, despite the fact that technically it was written for a work of fiction. At the end of the day, good fiction is still rooted in truth. That way we could better believe it, better understand it, better relate to it. And I think to some extent, you could take out the word king and you could put other things in that sentiment and it would hold up, at least to some degree. There's a quote on professionalism. Professional is not a label you give yourself. It's a description you hope others will apply to you. To say, I am a professional, I am an expert, I am accomplished. You know, to some extent, I do believe that there is also old sayings to this effect, you know. There's an underlying sentiment in general where people don't necessarily look kindly on those who praise themselves, but they do look up to those who are praised by others. Another quote on professionalism, and this one is a bit more pointed. It's not the job you do, it's how you do the job. Or, to kind of spin that in a different way, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional to do the job, wait until you hire an amateur. And anybody who has had to deal with either a small business or just your own household needs, those who have some amount of awareness will understand what that last quote means. Sometimes the amateur that seems cheaper will cause you to incur so much cost because the job was done so poorly, you might as well have hired the expensive professional in the first place. You would have paid almost the same amount of money, if not less, and you would have had far less hassle. It's not the label you give yourself, it's a description you hope others will apply to you. And this is the thing where I feel as though too often people in high office, whether public servants holding high government office, politicians, elected officials in parliament in particular, because that's higher office than, say, a local government body, but even in the private sector, to some extent, even in the private sector, it's almost as though there is this adoption. I have made it. I have determined that I have made it, and I have determined that you will respect me because, not because of the character that I have displayed to you to be worthy of respect, or the actions that I have undertaken to be worthy of respect, but just because I am in a position that I may not have necessarily gotten due to the merits by which we would all aspire or hope idealistically we get there too. That is to say, it's not because you were elected because you were the best candidate. It was because you were a member of the party that ultimately won the election. That's why you were elected. Half of the businessmen in the country do not have what they have because they built it from scratch. Their fathers built it from scratch. Their grandfathers built it from scratch. Now, to be fair, it takes skill to maintain things. But the flip side is, there are a lot of businessmen who, in this country who are quite humble. And there are those who are a bit more on the side of never see come see, but they have arrived. And the problem with that is, at the end of the day, the public will look at you, whether you're the customers to a businessman or the voters to a politician, not the diehard supporters for whatever reason they're diehards, usually because you did something for them, but the ones who are free to make their own decisions will look at you and say, well, why? Ultimately, as an individual, you mean very little to me. That's essentially what happens. And it goes back to what I say with regards to leadership, and others on the show have said, where is the leadership to inspire, but also to guide, to point the way, to show us that's our North Star, that's the course. What is the course upon which this country is currently traveling to? What destination do we hope for? Do we even know? Professionalism, it's something that's lacking in the protective services. It's something that is potentially lacking in the judiciary. It's something that's lacking throughout our customer service sector, whether private or public, particularly in various retail outlets, a lot of customer-facing positions. There's a lot of disappointment. And it trickles down into the consumer base, who then have low expectations. So, of course, they treat customer service reps equally poorly. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. But then the question is, to what extent does that cycle exist into the halls of Parliament? Do we, as the people, as the public, have any responsibility with regards to the language in Parliament? Because when a parliamentarian says something that is reprehensible, it's understandable to criticize it, except sometimes you see the level of criticism is just as reprehensible, and now you have to ask the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Because sometimes the commentary by the public on social media is so reprehensible that we will not be able to ever state it live on air or broadcast it, pre-recorded, or what have you, repeat it in any form or fashion. So that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight. Yes, I understand that we need to demand more from our leaders, but to some extent, are they merely a reflection on us? Because at the end of the day, if we use a certain language, we could try and demand for them to be better, and to some extent they should be. But the flip side is, at some point, if we are so stubborn, and if we want to go down a certain path, and we only respond to a certain type of language, what do you expect them to do? Not to try to reach out to us in language that apparently the majority of us can understand. And if that statement insults you, I would just like to point out the fact that we need to display something tangible to the effect of, no, that's not the language that reaches out to us. You need to be better than that. And unfortunately, yes, of course, everybody's different. Maybe there's a loud minority with Wajang language. Maybe it's a majority. And those who don't want to use such language might have to suffer being misconstrued. But at the end of the day, therein lies the tough, difficult aspects of this thing called democracy. We have to figure that out. We can't just lament the fact that, oh, things are the way they are. Because that's the message we're sending the politicians. On some level. Now what makes it difficult is we don't know to what extent that level is. It might be mostly our fault, it might be mostly their fault. But that is to some extent besides the point. I always say we should aspire to do our part regardless of the mistakes others make. Because if we do our part, then there is no blame to be put on us. Even if no one else wants to do the right thing, we should be looking to do the right thing. I mean, in academia, it's very simple. If we did our part for the group project, but the rest of the group fell down, at some point the lecturers will look at us and say, well, you did your part, so we can't penalize you for the failings of others. But if we just give up and resign ourselves to our fate, we have to accept the failure with those who did not put the work in. Enough about that, because all of this is pointed to one specific incident that has now become within or highlighted within the public sphere. So to get into that incident in particular, let's kick off today's daily review. Yeah, what time?
Let me wait on Madam Speaker.
You go run girls now for all in the back room. You can't use the PTSD buses anymore though, but you go bring the girls for all, you know. Including camera.
You're going to use the bathroom?
Yeah, she and Zami.
Hey, what don't call my name. What's wrong with you? Hey, boy, cool it in my corner. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am not sure why the Leader of the Opposition has left the House. I hope it's a bathroom break. But what happened?
No, let's don't go down that road, okay? So, you know what, I really, want to try and lift this to another place, all right?
I am sorry, Madam Speaker. I apologize. I was thinking of the only logical reason, but I apologize. I apologize. So,
now I'll be honest. There's a part of me that found it entertaining, except at the end of the day, it's unprofessional. I understand. Men and women will have their inner circle where they will make jokes like that. Usually to each other. If it's not to each other, then the intentions are questionable. When you make jokes like that, I mean, to some extent, I'm making a lot of assumptions here. But jokes with borderline language, you have a friend, maybe he did something or something happened to him that he's embarrassed about, so you joke with him about it. That's happened to me with my friends. The thing about it is there's two issues here. As entertaining as it was to watch the sign language man in the corner kind of look off to the side and share utter confusion about what was going on, that's to tell you how abnormal this was. he himself had a look of what? Words cannot describe probably the shock on his face properly. At the end of the day, this would have been all fine if it had much different context. One would be, it's a group of friends saying these things to each other. Now, it's always said that politicians can lie and get along behind closed doors and away from the public and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if they get along that well. Maybe they do. Maybe they like to throw these zingers at each other in private functions or what have you. But first, even if that's true, they have a public persona that they themselves have curated, that they themselves have generated, that they themselves try to project. So in that case, it would be a mistake for Minister Young to kind of forget about that and bring private pecan into the public sphere. But it wasn't just in the public sphere. This was within the halls of Parliament. And by the demeanor of the other ministers who were entertained, right? And the thing about it is, the core of it, I found it was ridiculous. So I did laugh at not at the joke that the minister was trying to portray, but rather the whole absurdity of it all. This is in Parliament, where there are live microphones, and credit to the parliamentary channel. This video was put up because it was streamed. They have not tried to edit it or take it down, nor should they, because at the end of the day, it happened in Parliament. The record of it happening should be kept in Parliament, and if that embarrasses anybody, apparently it was all smiles yesterday when Minister Young was questioned about it. One newspaper took note that when he got into his car, apparently he dropped the facade of smiling. Not necessarily sure what that means. Don't want to read too much into it. It could be a benign decision where he just decided to stop smiling because he was stepping into the car or what have you. Or it could be that he was not happy with the line of questioning. But the fact of the matter is, okay, you want to, you could also have issue with this type of joke that the minister made. I, to be honest, was not aware of the word that was utilized. Apparently, the parliamentarians are far more experienced than I am with regards to certain aspects of human nature, and I'll leave that there. Well, no, I'll leave that there. I'll leave that there. But this was in Parliament. Kudos also to the Speaker for not necessarily allowing the joke to be furthered, except one could argue she could have, and maybe she should have, used stronger language. She didn't necessarily need to do anything to affect the current situation, but rather to make it better known that in this House, such type of language and line of... Now, apparently she was conversing with the Deputy Speaker, so she potentially was not fully aware of what happened. So to some extent, I'm not necessarily going to be hard on her for not coming down hard on the situation, except I do wish she did, and maybe she knew enough to know that I could say, maybe, that she should have, but it's difficult to know what she knew of the incident. I don't know if there was anything preceding that, either outside of Parliament or within Parliament, to allow for that talk. Hopefully we don't see anything like it again. It was completely absurd. And there's a point of me that the severity of what happened has not hit me yet because it's so absurd. Because the lack of professionalism was so sudden. Because the point in time where the audio cut out, an expletive can be distinctly heard, uttered by the Minister of Energy, Stuart Young himself. In what context or his intentions for uttering it, I am not entirely sure. regardless, this is in Parliament. He is saying it loud enough for his colleagues to hear. Not just the ministers next to him, but the ministers behind him, for the mics to pick up, to record for all time this situation. Lord only knows exactly what the opposition leader and her colleagues heard. And to some extent, I'm grateful whether or not they heard anything that they did not respond. We did not need that whole situation to devolve further with a back and forth. Either they weren't able to hear it, which I'm grateful for, or they chose to ignore it, which I would be even more grateful for. Although now that it's in the public sphere, I would hazard, I guess, that they are not going to be able to ignore it moving forward, in part because the bases will demand a response, and this goes back to what I said earlier. It's not just how and what they want to say, but rather how they think they need to do so in order to effectively communicate with their base supporters. To some extent, that's what the Prime Minister does as well. Half of what he says and the manner of which he chooses to say it is not for my callers, or most of them. It's not for Mr. San Fernando or the professor in Chaguanas or the multiple callers from Diego Martin. It's not for us. It's for the diehard supporters that want to hear that stuff because it's emotionally charged and it makes them feel good that my guy is hitting back in language that I could understand and appreciate. I mean, to some extent, we could all get off our high horses because we understand the language, whether we agree with it or not. But this is supposed to be the Red House, hallowed ground, the incident in '91 notwithstanding. Some things should be held sacred so that by the example of our leaders, we too understand that respect must be given to the instruments of inherent power within our government that goes beyond party politics. No one owns the Red House. It is an institution of the nation, for the nation, to do the nation's business. And it was not necessarily for the first time, but to some extent furthered or further cheapened by that remark. Or remarks, I should say. And to some extent, the attitude, the joking attitude around it is almost as equally disappointing. The Minister of Finance understands the mics are on to take it seriously. How you could say that? It's something to that effect he said. But then he continued afterwards when the chamber was cleared, when the Speaker was now acknowledged to resume her post from the Deputy Speaker, he continued with one last barb. Why? And the thing about it is, if this is all a joke, why do parliamentarians in the Red House, particularly in this case on the government side, why do they expect us to take them seriously when they are not taking their job seriously? And listen, I have no idea the motivation behind Stuart Young's remarks. I have no idea with regards to how true they are or not. That is a separate debate. And of course, technically, that is not something that should be said publicly in any sort of serious way, because that's just, at least to the public, I guess, bubble to the top of your head. We might all have heard some rumors. I have not heard any rumors that are in effect with regards to what the minister said. But we have all heard some rumors. We don't accept them. If it becomes an incident where evidence is declared, then that's different. But until then, rumors are rumors. They're about as valuable as the paper they're printed on, and most of the times they're not even printed. But this is Parliament. Now it's on the record. Cussing is on the record. Not just a derogatory statement now. For what reason to possibly justify it, I have no idea. And then, of course, now, when bullying is on the table as a serious issue facing the schools, this is the example being set further. It is ultimately disappointing. It gives, and this is politically, this makes no sense, because the golden bullet of ammunition that you're giving your political detractors, critics, opponents is incredible. It's an unforced error, the likes of which I do not understand. Whatever a politician does in their personal life is their personal life. As long as it's not immoral, and that is, some people may want to debate that, but for the most part, you gotta come good to try and state how and what is immoral. You might not like what a politician does in their personal life. As long as they're not breaking any laws, that's their business. But now we go from implying law breaking to implying I don't know what. And all of these implications of things in Parliament, like rumors, are as valuable as the paper they're printed on. Except these things in Parliament do get printed. And how valuable is it? We have a record of these things now for all time. I can't fault people who wish we didn't. Right now, Prime Minister Keith Rowley is thinking his legacy project is going to be the airport and the five-star hotel to essentially kind of replace the Sandals project that did not come off the ground, because the Sandals project was supposed to be his legacy. Just like the waterfront was Prime Minister Patrick Manning's legacy, the Children's Hospital was Prime Minister Kamal Prasad's legacy, the Piarco Airport was Prime Minister Basdio Pandey's legacy, right? But the fact of the matter is, these legacy projects, it's not so simple and straightforward. And in the case of Prime Minister Rowley, I think his real legacy, because this will be what is part of the record. It's not like before when everything was based on paper and then you get some accidental fire and it just all goes away. This is part of the record now, and this might just be his legacy. I mean, at the end of the day, the airport was, well, we'll see how that turns out. It might turn out like Napa. The five-star hotel, that hasn't even necessarily started construction yet, so we'll count that when it actually hatched, that chicken. But the behavior in Parliament, and being the Prime Minister who was essentially in charge of the majority bench, so one could argue you are responsible for the majority of it. Is that your legacy? That's what it feels like to me. Because when your supporters are long dead and buried, all of us are long dead and buried, 3-4 generations from now, will they speak about this like how they speak about Eric Williams? Most likely it will be worse. Because whatever context you would hope to defend yourself with will no longer exist. We would all not be here. All we could do is have people look at the objective record. That is the video. That's what you will be judged by successive generations. What will they think of us, of Trinidad and Tobago in 2024, when you see things like that? It's so ridiculous. The sign language interpreter just had to put his hands down because, and maybe for the better, at least some members of the country were not subjected to that ludicrousy. All right, now let's go on to the next topic there. This is just a quick hit one. The PCA has made a point to acknowledge there are more crimes by fake police. But I think the problem with this statement, is that we just had an example of real police. And I was one of the people who would say, we have an issue with fake police that's making the police look bad. And a lot of these issues with police shootings might be incidents of fake police. Except then I found out, no. There's a lot that goes on that we don't know about. Serious things that affect people, that corrupt people, that break people. And I'm not talking about just the civilians. I'm talking even within the police. And the fact of the matter is, we have, as clear as day, one kidnapping and murder of someone that involves, unless we get some real good evidence to state the contrary, 2 police officers. A situation that essentially has been acknowledged by the police executive. So to some extent, I understand the police, the PCA having to say fake police, because you can't be absolutist without clear evidence that it's all done by the police, right? There are a lot of incidents where I don't even know we'll ever get the truth to. And this latest incident with the 5 individuals, Lord only knows, we hope it's fake police. But even if it is, this is to tell you how far the situation has devolved. Because at this moment in time, to some extent, sadly, the significance of whether the police are fake or not is to some extent diminished by the fact that we have an issue of this crime situation that seemingly is going unabated and at least partially is being committed, not just supported, but committed by some of the people who are supposed to be stopping it. So even if everything else is done by fake police, how did they get the counterfeit uniforms or steal the authentic ones? How were they allowed to not just have the lights, but install them and use them on the road? There's no account, there's no capacity to detect these things. They go and they commit a crime, apparently, allegedly, fake police. Seemingly immune, with a sense of immunity. Blatant and brazen, because there would be witnesses to observe these things. The gentleman was kidnapped, so the accounts of his kidnapping could not come from him. I don't believe he has been freed yet. It's bad either way. It's not just bad either way. The implications are horrendous either way. You have not lost control on the crime situation. At this point, arguably, the police executive have lost control of the police situation. When gangsters are being looked to, they're actually being looked to provide protection. It's not extortion. It's reached the point where you're actually paying them because you need protection. When the symbols of policing are so diluted that they are utilized in order to commit crimes on a regular, day-to-day basis, you've not lost control of the crime situation. I can't even remember which DCP said it, but buddy, you have lost control of your own situation. We already had Defense Force bullets allegedly utilized in crimes. And it's not just counterfeit uniforms. It is authentic uniforms. Just think about the implications of what that means. Actual official property by the protective services, including potentially ammunition, are utilized in crimes. We just had a police car utilized in crimes. 95 new vehicles for the police service, so now we have to ask, is that 95 new getaway vehicles? And yet, how much of the strategies and the things put in place are the same old, same old? Where are the new strategies, the new ideas? Yes, there are some things being done, as Mr. San Fernando pointed out yesterday, but I would argue that that is not enough. How far does it have to go? And let me be frank. What good is stand your ground in a situation where 5 men in a car with blue-colored lights, with police tactical wear and high-power weapons come to confront you? Are you going to fight them off with your handgun? You going to stand your ground against that? You have friends and family with you. You expect them to help you. Most of them probably won't be armed either. They're going to stand with you up against a group looking for a fight. If you decide to throw down with your 1 or 2 handguns and they have automatic weapons potentially, what is stand your ground going to do here? Except potentially get you and other people close to you killed. How is stand your ground going to protect you here? So right now, I see an entire parliament full of people with no ideas on what to do. They're too busy trying to beat each other. Do they really actually give any consideration to the people who are dying right now? Oh yeah, they do so for the camera. But they do a lot of things for the camera. Just like they avoid certain interactions with the public because they know that they would look bad in front of the camera. But that's the level that they're at. People are dying, but they don't care about that. They just care about beating their political opponents. Meanwhile, the PCA is trying to play, ironically, political correctness. So maybe we should call it the Political Correctness Authority. I don't know exactly what the issue is, but the PCA does not have enough teeth for the mission that it now finds itself having to deal with. And maybe it's the PSB, I believe it's the PSB and one other arm within the police service that's also supposed to investigate things like this. And maybe that's the arm that we should put our hope or faith into. But then again, an internal unit by the police to investigate police crimes, right now I cannot fault anybody within the public for not having faith in that. So with regards to the PCA, what are we left with? An independent body that has no teeth, potentially does not have the legislation to back it up. We're going nowhere fast. Now is the time for the police executive to put their money where their mouth is. They want to talk about, oh, these bad apples within the police service making us look bad, betraying us. That's nice. What have you done? Yes, you have arrested the scapegoats who served themselves up on a silver platter. So I can't necessarily say that it was great policing with regards to that investigation. But punishing them is not enough. What are you doing for the service to prevent this from ever happening again? Because at the end of the day, there is one deniable fact in all of this. This happened under your watch. You're in charge. You want the glory of the big seat? Well, unfortunately, the buck stops at you. More than anybody else, more than even the Prime Minister, you're in charge directly of the police service, the commissioner and all the deputy commissioners. What are you going to do about it? Yes, I understand you don't necessarily want to talk about your internal stuff, but hey, publicly, you're looking really bad. So maybe you should be willing to speak about how you're going to deal about it. Because we're not talking about some HR internal issue. We're talking about the conduct of police officers within criminal activity that harms members of the public. What are you going to do about it? Because if you were confident that the police service was cleaning up their act, then the most recent kidnapping and the statements from the PCA when they want to say fake police, because that's what the reporting says, police in tactical wear, fake police. The PCA is concerned with incidents of fake police or people conducting crimes in police clothing. We would give you the benefit of the doubt if you cleaned up your act or at least had the appearance of doing something substantial to clean up your act. But again, it's ironic how, like the politicians in the Red House, the police executive seem to be more concerned about playing politics than actually doing police work, except, like the politicians, they are so inept at politics. They're doing all the wrong things. They're making themselves look bad. They're making themselves look worse by their inability to deal with any of these situations. Let's not forget the one potential bright spot in policing where we actually see the police doing any sort of professional work, gender-based violence, was not instituted by the current executive. It was inherited. All right, I've gone on way too long. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome my co-host. Stay tuned.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport.
October 9th to October 30th, with replays on October 31st.
It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process that we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Seth. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
And we're back here on Talking About WESN, and apologies to the man that is now to join the show, because I took too long to bring him on. I didn't realize I was going on so long on the last topic. And that topic we will actually continue and pick up to hear what he has to say about it. You hear what I had to say. Now you get to hear the words of the one and only, the Shah of Keaton, Mr. Keaton Shah.
The Shah of Keaton, that's new. And good morning, Sean Michael Small. How are you? And by the way, it's fine. It's talking point. So it's okay if sometimes...
As long as we're talking, right?
It's okay if the passion is fine. It's good to see that there is some passion left. So.
All right, well, my thing, of course, was I think it's bad either way, whether this is fake police or not. I think the situation has gotten so bad that we should look at it as a bad situation and crime getting worse. And I said the police, they wanted to say that crime is not out of control. I would say policing is out of control. But Keaton, this overall situation, which includes now the fake police or actual police kidnapping for ransom, what do you make of it?
How much of it could you even refer to as being fake police anymore? You know, that's the thing. How much of it could it be? Because, and I asked that question because the Trans-Tobago Police Service has not done anything at all to give any level of reassurance to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, quite frankly, confidence in the police would, if it was low before, it's probably getting to the bottom of the barrel in respect to, you know, confidence in the police being able to execute their duties and responsibilities. This situation in respect to police, you know, being involved in crime and criminality is not necessarily something new, but it comes at an absolutely terrible time for the TTPS. Because, again, look back at a Deputy Commissioner of Police who has stated that crime is under control, or we have things, and we are working on things. Take a look back to Earl Edward Christopher when she first entered office, and everything that she has said since then in respect to confidence in the policing or goals and targets that we want to achieve. And add to this now, and I mentioned it this morning, in a daily newspaper, major headlines in respect to kidnappings for ransom if they're on the rise. A police source, according to that newspaper, said this is something that citizens should not be worried about. Now, you know, quite frankly, it's good to know that the TTPS were able to actually capture their own in respect to a kidnapping and murder that took place. Was it last week or the week before?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's good to note that the TTPS were able to do that. However, given the situation and the latest now in respect to these individuals who were dressed in police uniform, you know, because kind of hard to identify police uniform these days. The TTPS has not done anything at all to reassure the nation. They haven't come forth and addressed this particular situation and making statements like you should not be worried about it, or we have things under control, or things are currently operating and it's going to happen. Sean, do you remember when the Minister of National Security, if I'm not mistaken, in 2022, is it 2021 or 2022, made comments to the effect that we need to exercise more patience?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? So how much more patience do we need to exercise? You know, how much more do we need to go through as law-abiding citizens? You know, how much more fear has to be instilled in us? How much more paranoia do we have to face before our patience pays off? And you know, honestly, the PCA could come out and make these statements, and it's their responsibility and job to oversee, you know, really the police operations and really how genuine they are and make sure they do it to the best of their abilities. But these comments don't even help a situation. Commentary does nothing anymore. I think that the PCA has been put into a position where they have no choice but to make these statements, because if they remain silent, TNT will have question marks about it. But honestly speaking, the TTPS, though I really don't want to speak ill of all the officers within the service, this situation not only has put a further stain and damper in respect to confidentiality, the TTPS have not helped themselves. They really have not helped themselves. The Commissioner of Police has remained silent. I don't know if her prayers are being answered. God helps those who help themselves, as they say. and really, I don't know if she has helped herself. The Deputy Commissioner of Police, who has basically come out and spoken and said, we have things under control. This police officer now saying that we should not be worried or concerned about these things. Sure, Michael Small.
Let me ask you something from a different line of thought, because of course there are those, and I have heard it, they believe that the TTPS operates like a gang. This is people who have a much better understanding of the inner workings of the police than I do, right? Not police officers, but people outside of the service with ties to the police in various ways. Of course, we know of the thing that came out from the Triple Moruga homicide case, one squad, one song, right? Now, here's the thing. I'm not asking you if you think that there is a high degree of police involvement in crime, but do you think the public thinks that there's a high degree of police involvement in crime, at the very least higher than what the national conversations and what's said in the media and what's said by the authorities, right? What's kind of out there in the public sphere, higher than what that would suggest? Because I will go out on a limb and say, I think the public very much thinks that there are a lot of crimes being done by police officers. And as you always point out, what we have heard in the media is just what we know of, right? As you would always say, we don't know of the crimes that we don't know of.
Well, first of all, we need to be very cautious in referring to the TTPS as acting like a gang, and the simple reason being is that there is a legal definition for gang and gang members. No. It's honestly speaking, one really has to be careful, because honestly, Sean Michael Small, as I said, sometimes it's just amazing how things could turn on, again, law-abiding citizens in an instant.
They might start charging people with sedition.
See, yeah, exactly. And we don't really want that, because talking point needs to continue. But anyway, in that regard, again, the perception of the Trans-Tobago Police Service is absolutely poor. It's ridiculous. Quite frankly, I could never really understand how the TTPS and the executives or those in charge of the TTPS remain. But if you are speaking about the TTPS and how they act in looking after their own and looking after themselves, sometimes I even really wonder when it comes to the social welfare and that association, whether or not really they understand what they come out and what they say, whether or not they are defending the insane, sometimes it seems very stupid, the commentary that is coming out. It's just like they're totally ignorant of the situation on the ground. Yeah, of course they look after their own. Of course public perception would be, at a particularly low. But apart from that, take a look at stories that you've heard recently. A mother and a daughter were chopped to death, right? Most recently, a mother was chopped to death in front of her children as well. And I hate to have to use these descriptions, but that's exactly what has happened. And you hear from these families, listen, we actually made reports about it. The TTPS come out and refute these claims, by the way, which I can never understand. How is it that more often than not, you hear families saying, we actually came forward and made these reports. We actually called the police station to report on these things. The TTPS then come out and refute these claims. And then, the families say, no, but this is what's happened.
Well, I have an explanation. I have an explanation for this, or a potential explanation, right? Not to excuse it, right?
Before you do that, Sean, this is why I keep saying it's very important, right? You see that receipt that you get when you make a report? That's very, very important, right?
The thing is, we had a caller yesterday that basically said they wanted to make a complaint about something, and they were waiting for hours until finally one WPC decided to take the report, and essentially I think what was told was that, hey, the other officers, they didn't want to have to do the paperwork, right? So here's the thing. With regards to the bullying situation in that secondary school, the board is trying to say that they only have one incident, right? That's available to them, or they were only told of one incident before that young man took his life. My thing is, it's nice that you only have record of one incident. That doesn't mean to say that complaints weren't made. That doesn't mean to say that people didn't go to the police station to try to make a complaint, or maybe even they did make a complaint and the paperwork was treated so unprofessionally, right? However, that whatever that means, whether carelessly or whether purposefully discarded, I don't know, right? But I'll just say unprofessionally that it reaches the point now when the higher-ups want to actually look at the situation. Well, we don't have, not a lot of complaints were made. We don't have complaints. But at the end of the day, I don't think, Keaton, do you think it's unreasonable for me to say, I can't believe you when you make those statements? At this point, it's almost like if I have to believe the victims' families, because at the end of the day, the results we see are so bad, your track record implies there's something wrong on your end, that is to say, in this case, the TTPS.
You are not unreasonable at all. You are absolutely not unreasonable. You have every right to say that. Sean, what is happening now? And again, I keep speaking about the failure for the current TTPS executive to actually address these issues. It is ridiculous that they have remained more or less silent on this. It's more intriguing that the PCA have come out and spoken about this before the actual TTPS in addressing this particular situation. You are very much reasonable in making such statements, but I need you to bear in mind something as well. When we spoke about the TTPS actually looking after themselves, I don't know if this falls into that category as well. But what's, the TTPS are also making their job more difficult for themselves. Because of the level of hesitancy now and the lack of trust. If TTPS officers are executing their duty responsibly, and if they are very much genuine in executing their duty, how many people will now want to actually cooperate with the TTPS in executing such responsibilities? Because I will, for one, will tell you, and this thing about it happening in marked police vehicles as well, again, it's a stain. I, for one, will tell you, as much as I want to respect the law and will continue to respect and obey the law, and I'm not advocating for otherwise, I myself will feel a great sense of nerves or hesitancy if the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service stop you, or if you're sitting down somewhere and they walk in, or if something is happening or whatnot and the TTPS are wanting to question you. Wouldn't you have a level of hesitancy as well?
Let's go a step further. If you're a businessman in Central and someone is trying to extort you and you just seen two businessmen kidnapped, one by police, one by reportedly fake police, the police are asking you to report all instances of extortion. You think you're going to be safe to report that?
Sean, not one bit is there confidence in the reporting. Again, go back to the fact that families have said that we have reported incidents, the excuses from the TTPS, and I use the word excuses. The reason why I use the word excuses is because it seems to be very consistent. Oh, that was never the case. Even when it comes to Jaden Lalchan, again, may he rest in peace. What we're hearing, there is no history as such. There was only one report, so there are no suggestions. By the way, this is from the Minister of Education. It's a different thing. But I'm just saying, or there was no anything to say that this was historical. There was just one report. But the TTPS is coming out and saying the same thing when it comes to these mothers. That, that was never the case. Of course, there's going to, you don't trust the TTPS. That's why possibly there's a lot more happening and people are just not coming out. Not only because they are scared, but simply because as well, they don't trust the police. What if the police are the ones that are part of these operations? And again, I'm being very careful. I'm asking questions. I don't want to make statements because you never know what will happen. But apart from that, Sean Michael Small, don't you realize that a lot of these things are caught on camera? A lot of these things are caught. How many times have you seen circulating on social media robberies that are taking place? These individuals' faces are caught on camera, right? But nothing is ever done. These perpetrators are never found or arrested. Right now, and again, we celebrate the TTPS when they say we arrested so-and-so for possession of drugs, marijuana. That's all well and good. I'll give you another example. Do you remember a couple months ago where you heard of a situation in Tunapuna where outside the police station, cameras were set up, and the TTPS themselves could not explain exactly where those cameras came from, but then it was revealed, they were illegally set up and most likely from criminal gangs? Do you remember that story?
Yep.
Do you know, up to this day, by the way, I can't understand that because the TTPS have cameras there as well. It's right outside the police station. You know, up to today, nobody has been charged or arrested with those cameras being erected. Up to today, that has not happened. Again, You think the TTPS really helping themselves? It's not easy the job that they do. It's not, but it just seems as we brush it off, we leave it. The public doesn't have any answers to all the questions that we have. And again, the silence is deafening. We will continue to live in paranoia. We will continue to live in fear. And that is why when you hear the opposition speaking about things like stand your ground,
I was now going there.
Of course citizens are going to move towards that. Because the opposition is playing smart.
But Keaton,
paranoia.
Keaton, I have to ask, how safe is it for you to stand your ground now if the perpetrators of the crime might be presenting themselves as police officers? It might be several of them with high-powered weapons. So I said this before you joined. I mean, if I had a firearm and I was willing to stand my ground against criminals, it's 1 against 5 and they outgun me. And it's also potentially police officers. So can I stand my ground?
I think standing ground was more so spoken of and geared towards home invasions. In a particular instance with that video that we saw of the kidnapping of this central businessman last week into the weekend, in a situation like that, if you take a look at it, was it 5 or 6 individuals dressed in police, whatever you want to call it, polos with the police on it and high power? It's not going to work there. But I think the stand your ground conversation stemmed really for burglaries and home invasion.
Well.
And again, Sean Michael Small.
You forget, Keaton, sorry, but you forget in Mayara, I believe it was, there was a case where there was a home invasion conducted by a group of individuals. When the person made to make the report to the police, one of the alleged perpetrators or suspects that was identified by the witness, who I believe then withdrew the complaint. So I don't know if it was a mistake or if they were intimidated.
It
was a soldier.
It was an individual in defense force
reporting,
who was in the police station.
Reporting for duty as part of the interagency task force.
Withdrew their report, withdrew their complaint. And guess what? Anything ever happened in that particular case? Was there ever any outcome in that particular case? Listen, Sean, you have to say plainly, the Defense Force and the TTPS look after their own. And don't get on the wrong side. Law-abiding citizens could quarrel, could complain. Again, I'm not spewing hatred, and I'm not advocating for people to behave or misbehave or break any laws. But guess what? Because such services look after their own, how much confidence do you have in the TTPS or the Defense Force? And by extension, again, where is the executive of the TTPS? Sometimes I wonder if the silence is better than them coming out and saying, we have a control on things.
Well, I have a final question to wrap this up. Do you think that there are people underneath the executive who, if the executive were to be replaced today, may do a better job? Because it seems to me, at least to some extent, the senior superintendents and the ACPs, I won't say all of them, I can't say how many of them, but it seems to me that the people at that level, assistant soups, senior soups, they are the ones kind of holding the thing together. They also might be some of the ones responsible for the bad apples, right? But it's hard to tell. But do you think we should just replace wholesale the executive? Well, if we could, would it improve? Because I think it might, but I don't know for sure.
Would it improve? I am in the same position as you. I really don't know for sure. But you see, the relationship and the communication with the public needs to be stronger and a lot better. And you cannot come and spew things that are so inaccurate by you suggesting that we have things under control. But then when you're seeing kidnappings for ransom taking place week after week, and a police officer saying citizens shouldn't be worried about it. Sean, the immediate thing that came to my mind when I heard about that, by the way, not to digress too further from the topic or the question, was that does the TTPS, by this one officer, whomever they are, speaking to the Express newspaper in that article on Sunday, does the TTPS, by the officer's comments, know who is being targeted? By saying citizens should not worry or panic about it, does the TTPS have an idea of who is being targeted? Do they have an idea of who are these particular citizens that need to be concerned or need to worry? Changing the executive of the TGBS might not shift anything overnight, but there certainly needs to be more policing within the police service. There needs to be greater policing within the police service. I, for one, am reaching to that point where polygraph testing for police officers, for all police officers, by an independent institution or organization, needs to take place. I'm reaching to that point. Because honestly, again, I'm not painting every officer as being bad. But it ain't helping. The situation isn't being helped. And the executive of the TGBS, clearly, I pray every day, and I pray for protection, and I pray for honesty. God, I hope you're walking with me every day, because when I'm walking out there, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I wonder if that's what the TTPS is doing as well, except, again, need I say, to the Commissioner of Police, God helps those who help themselves. And if people could sleep at night knowing and saying that they have things under control, when clearly crime in Trinidad and Tobago is so rampant, it seems as though criminals oftentimes have more rights than citizens. Criminals oftentimes are the ones that are getting away with everything. But again, somebody goes and speaks to these criminals and raise points, and sedition is raised once more. Sean Michael Small, changing the executive of the TTPS isn't going to happen, isn't going to bring about any sort of change overnight. But it might help the situation, especially with the relationship of the public, because clearly this executive doesn't have that and doesn't know how to create that relationship.
One could argue, and I think you touched on it, and so did I earlier, it won't take much for them to look better than they look now. Some kind of initiative for something to try to affect change somewhere, but then the problem is they have a public perception problem, so they can't just do it behind the scenes, and if it don't work out, they'll hush it up and they won't talk about it. No, they need to kind of tell us something, because it's affecting policing. It's affecting the trust people have in the police to then report crime so that the police could apparently do their job, except when we make reports, they don't want to actually write it down. And there's more that we could say about this, and we will, depending, but we will take a short break, and then we'll open the phone line. Stay tuned. This is talking about the WSN, the Connect Capital, Keaton Shaw's with me, Sean Michael Small. We'll be back after this.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the corresponding banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. There's difference in size.
All right, a little bit late, but of course, as usual, we open the phone line so you could call in and have your say here in the last 13 minutes or so of talking points, or we may go a little bit longer than that sometimes, but try not to wait too long to call in. Meanwhile, there's another point my colleague, Mr. Shah, would like to bring up before we get your calls. Don't be afraid to call in and interrupt us, but Keaton, while you have the time.
Yes, please interject anytime. Sometimes I'm fed up with hearing my own voice, but Sean Michael Smaller, the other aspect of this is that recently we learned that 1,000 new police officers will be added by March of next year.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is being said. But adding 1,000 police officers, again, more police officers to serve the nation it's okay. But if you're adding just 1,000 more TTPS officers, the perception is that, okay, great, more people. Perception is like, oh, who are these people that are coming into the service? Are they being vetted? It does not make sense having 1,000 more police officers if proper policing and policing measures are not enacted or implemented into the TTPS. It doesn't make sense adding 1,000 more individuals if they aren't vetted and there's continuous vetting, because all you're doing is creating employment. All you're doing is creating employment and giving money to people if it is you are not implementing proper policing measures, if it is that public perception is at an all-time low, and if vetting, I say all-time low, by the way, I don't know that statistically speaking, I'm just saying. And vetting is not something that is happening on a recurrent basis. You know, so adding 1,000 more people sounds all well and good, more people to help with the service, this and that or the other. You're just simply creating jobs, and hopefully, whilst I'm saying those jobs might serve a purpose, if it is that these individuals aren't vetted and policing measures, modern policing measures and modern technology is not utilized, it really doesn't add up to anything in the end. 60% of the TTPS vehicle fleet isn't working. I don't know, it just seems as though our response to this is to keep adding new vehicles. Every year, we're just going to keep throwing millions and millions of dollars at new vehicles. And 60% is not working.
Listen. Hey, if there were more vehicles working, there might be more getaway cars for the criminals. We have Mova first, I believe, then Shagonas on the line. Good morning, caller, you on the air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, every time I call, I have to keep reminding you all. Our problems didn't start last week. Our problems didn't start last month. I heard Mr. San Fernando saying yesterday, and sometimes I wonder where some people's minds are at. He believes that idea put forward by Euler, give it some time, it will give it. Listen, this situation we are in, no one thing is going to fix our problem. And anyone who runs to praise, look, I saw one of our most prominent criminologists giving praise in the papers that the police is going to set up more cameras. No one thing deserves any praise because no one thing is going to work. Why are we still we like dolly house people? Right? We have a police service that has been mismanaged for over 50 years and malmanaged. Everything is going to have to be revamped. The police officers who were charged with the murder and the kidnapping, you know what they are going to be reappearing in court in November next year? Has anybody realize what we're dealing with. You have a crime situation, yes. You have a judiciary situation, yes. You have a police lack of discipline. Not just discipline is just one of the issues, yes. And people make praises for one foolish idea someone comes up with. We are in a total mess, and we continue to be in a total mess. An acting DCP, whatever it is, saying, oh, it's dark day for the police service because these police officers were held with it. It has been a dark day for the police service for years. A police officer years ago was playing with a gun in an oldest night party and killed a man and got off in court. Wasn't that a dark day for the police service? No, I suppose it was a dark day for the country, but the police was found innocent. What we are reaping now, we have been sowing since 1960. And I keep telling you all that, and we keep glossing over everything. How long have we been reasoning about they getting the ammunition with TTPS and marking? Has anyone in authority really come out and give us any serious reassurance, give us facts about the getting into? It's only all sort of old talk, nonsense, and we seem to accept it and we go on to the next day. The media has to take a serious blame for all this nonsense. There's too much nonsense and old talk taking place in this country, and we are reaching nowhere. And I will always say, again, the PNM is at the heart of this situation. They are 90% to blame. They have been in office for the longest. No one can tell me that when the PNM is in office, things run good, and all the destruction is because of the few years that the opposition was there. Who are the people that started this thing? Why can't we see that and accept it? We need to get rid of these people. It doesn't mean that the other people come in and fix everything.
Okay.
Thank you, caller. We have other callers.
Yes,
thank
you, caller. We have Sugar on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air? Morning.
I read this morning papers. They're going to audit the office of the Prime Minister going back to
2010 to 2024.
From 2024, going backwards to when Kamala was there. They give no reason why this. Is it that they didn't do it before? That is incredible, because you're supposed to have at least internal audits all the time. And if there's a serious problem which is not addressed, the Auditor General is supposed to come in. I mean, he have a schedule, a normal schedule. And what I find great about this, they say they're going to publish it for everybody to see. But and within 3 months, I hope I last 3 months to be able to.
Within 3 months, that is incredible that they're going to get this audit done in 3 months.
Well, I don't see why you can't do it, because assuming the government is operating properly, because all these things have to be available. When I used to be in public service, when the internal audit has come, within less than a week, they will finish. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, caller, just some statements. I think the audit can be done if you throw enough manpower at it. I don't know if that's reasonable to do so.
They have an internal audit, they have an office of the Auditor General, the staff supposed to be there.
The other thing, Professor, I think they're including 2010 to 2015 because they want to kind of soften any negative news from the Prime Minister, or rather maybe dig up some dirt on their political opponents. Beyond that would be the Patrick Manning administration, and beyond that would be the Pandey administration, so that doesn't matter to them. All right, Professor, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I myself am wondering if it's born from a situation now, right? So why are they including 2010 to 2015?
No, accountability and transparency is very important, and so having an idea is a good thing. But again, I don't see how it's necessarily relevant now.
It's convenient.
Transparency and accountability. But you do recall that the response for question marks over the Prime Minister's, the allocations to the office of the Prime Minister. What was the response? So, honestly speaking, you expect anything different?
They're trying to parry, but it's so obvious it's not going to be successful. With that said, San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning.
I looked at that issue with the walkout in the House of Representatives, and I just need to say this, Sean. that is not nothing. That isn't anything new. That behavior in the parliament, I have witnessed that from since I started to follow the parliament as a teenager. When they actually brought in the mics and the cameras to do the public for the public, it was horrendous at the time, just like how you feel about it. So I just letting you know that is nothing new. Let me say to the caller from over, and my comment about the CPs, the ACPs now as a layer of management. No one thing is going to fix it, as he said, and he is correct. No one thing is going to fix it, but there are things that has to be done. It can't be fixed overnight with a magic wand, whap, a la peanut butter sandwiches. It can't be fixed like that. So there are things that have to be implemented, and where I see there are good things, I'm going to comment on it, and that is one of the good things that, as far as I am concerned, that's why I'm saying give it a little time. Everything can't happen, and just as he says, is a problem. He said about 50 years now the TTBS has a problem. I agree.
Caller, can I ask you a question? If you don't mind, because I wasn't present yesterday, so I would not have known everything that you would have said. You are entitled to your opinion. I'm glad that you give praise on credit where credit is due. But how much time is sufficient time? How much time is enough time before patience becomes an issue?
No, it's not about the time, Keaton. If it is that this problem that we are speaking about, that he spoke about and we all speak about, I have seen this from, let me go back as far as I remember. There have been problems from Randolph boroughs come all the way to where it is now. So it's not a matter of how much time. It has to be fixed, and it has to be fixed by the political directorate and within the service. There are cliques in the service. The service has always has corruption. It has always had corruption, and it hasn't changed. And the officers that are in there, the good ones that we talk about, they know. You didn't see what's her name, Suzette Martin, trying to get the good ones to call out the bad ones. They know what's happening inside of there. Whether they have the ability to fix it is within the service themselves is a catch-22 question. But let me say this quickly. I was appalled the situation at the Port Authority when they had the go slow, and so they had a vehicle vessel came to offload vehicles, and I saw where Vice Air Marshal Daryl Daniel sent staff, because they came from the regiment, to offload the vessel, to drive off the vehicles, but we can't get them to assist in a more meaningful way in national security in terms of being at those areas in the country where I keep saying, even though we don't have vessels at the moment, with the amount of staff we have in the Coast Guard and the Army, and the regiment, those people can be deployed in meaningful ways in areas to guard the coast without vessels. Over the weekend, I went down to some places, and I was shocked to how open our borders are in this country, and the amount of things that was alleged that is happening in this country. We can fix these things, but people there have to think out the box. They have to come up with they just can't be I take a job and I just doing what the other person did. There's no initiative, innovation. That is the problem in this place. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller.
Caller, listen to you, and I share in your opinion to the extent that, let me repeat what I said before, we took calls. It's unnecessary employment. And I see that to the extent that there are no measures, no policies, nothing in place. As far as I'm concerned, the regiment has become unnecessary employment. We are throwing money and giving salaries to individuals when I really don't see them serving a purpose. If you want them to actually assist in respect to national security operations, Sure, why not? But why has that not been done up until this point? But every year we're adding people to the cohort. It's costing TNT money. We have to feed these people. These people are kept in quarters. You know, it just doesn't make sense many of the times. They have not been used. I don't know if anybody got the opportunity to see Saddam Hussein question Minister Fitzgerald Hines in Parliament when it came to border patrol and vessels. Fitzgerald Hines can't even answer the question. It's a simple question to give a figure. How many vessels are currently working? Whether it be long range or how many vessels are currently working? Fitzgerald Hines could not give a response. He beat around the bush. He became very arrogant. He became very arrogant. But this is the attitude and the mentality when it comes to our leaders. 1,000 police or more police officers. Why? For what? If you don't have policing measures or the police are not carrying out their responsibilities, we are creating employment. Same thing with the Defense Force. Creating employment, spending money, not in a meaningful way. If I saw things being done differently, if I actually saw national security operations, where I saw regiment being a part of all these operations, Sean, your prime example was Mayaro. They were part of our operation. Look what happened there.
Yeah.
Look what happened there. You know, with the TTPS, I am not saying no to more officers. I am saying it just don't make sense spending money on these people when at the end of the day, operations and the situation are going to remain the same.
Well,
they need to have they need a good bush bath. That's what they need.
Let's wrap it up right here before we go too long. A couple of things I want to say. First of all, the new recruits, I think just like new entrants to politics, new entrants to the police service are at risk of being corrupted. I have reason to say that. I can't necessarily say what it is because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I have a lot of reasons to say that. One of which I will say this, it has been told to me that one of the sayings is a fish that tries to swim upstream eventually drowns. That was in conjunction to the police service. I'll leave that statement there. The thing about it, with regards to the caller from MOVA, I think Mr. Fernando is willing to commend the good things while still being willing to criticize the bad things, even if it's the same person that you're speaking about, which is what we do on Talking Point, right? Just because somebody does something bad most of the time doesn't mean that a broken clock can't be right twice a day. And conversely, you know, we should not be judging things based on the speaker, but on the merits of what's being said. And if it's good, regardless of how bad the person's track record is, let's just, you know, hand them for that one thing. But yes, the police services situation is a lot bigger than that. And with regards to the regiment, I'll say this, Keaton, I agree with you because I have said that on the record multiple times over I don't know how long. But I did put this forward to Garvin Hero after the budget. With regards to soldiers, I mean, they wear camouflage. One would assume that they should be versed in marching and going in mountainous terrain and rural terrain and whatnot. Why don't they patrol some of these areas that, you know, not a lot of people go to? A lot of the forested areas, mountainous areas, a lot of the remote beaches. Why don't they patrol there? Now, the basic premise Commander Hero agreed with. I'm not saying it's going to be easy to implement, but one would think, as you, I believe, pointed out, if we don't have the boats, put them out there to patrol the borders, or maybe it was San Fernando, I can't remember, but let them patrol the shore. This is not necessarily hard. You don't need to send 100 men to patrol one beach. You just send 6. If we need help, I do think we could look to, I think it's Southern Command in the US, maybe get a National Guard Green Beret squad to teach us some basic field craft. One would hope that the people that sign up to be soldiers actually want to do some kind of soldiering. There too often, with all of these promotion controversies in the service, that it's rarely just like the public sector with regards to all the HR controversies. And the mission of policing and soldering and so forth gets lost in the background.
Sean, listen, you can have the training available. Why not? Fine, that's all well and good. When you cannot actually put that training to work because the resources aren't available, does it make sense? Okay, a broken clock, maybe correct twice a day. Fair enough. But the reason why clocks are broken in Trinidad is because we have no idea how to maintain them. And we never have the parts that are necessary to repair them, right? So it goes for our vessels as well, right? How many times within the last 14 years have you heard about we're purchasing these vessels, we've acquired these vessels, right? That's money that's just constantly going down the drain, and yet, how many of them are operational as we speak? You know, again, I look at the TTPS, those cars, people say they run 24/7, yet when you call the police station, they never have a vehicle available. So 60% of the fleet is down. We don't maintain any of these vehicles. If you drive across Trinidad at various points, you will see a lot of ministry vehicles just starting to be broken down with weeds, consuming them because they just left there. That's where a lot of our money is going. We don't have value for money. And because we don't have value for money, resources are hard to come by because when you need it, we don't have it. We spent it, we threw it all away, we couldn't maintain it, we don't have it. And yet still, all these individuals are receiving a salary for what? The benefits. Again, what makes the Defense Force and Coast Guard and Air Guard and all these, by the way, I'm not too sure why we even have an Air Guard anymore. You know what makes it attractive is the compensation package and the benefits associated with it. How much money are we spending in these areas while, again, the rest of Trinidad and Tobago is suffering? There needs to be you want an audit of the OPM from 2010 to 2015? We need an audit of the finances and the resources and the manpower of all arms of national security. But nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to do it.
Nope, because then you'll uncover too much. You'll uncover too much, Keaton. Okay, so thanks to all the callers for calling in. It might seem to be reoccurring conversations, but hey, this is what's important, and an election is coming up and we need to have it. And of course, thanks to my co-host for joining me. Yes, it was late. That's my fault, folks. That's not his fault. Keaton, thanks for joining me today.
It's reoccurring because guess what? Nothing changes. Nothing changes. So it will be recurring for quite some time until we start seeing a bit more positive to speak about. Thank you very much, Sean Michael Small. It's always a pleasure being in my original home on Talking Point.
Well, folks, if Keaton would say the thing, so we could close the show.
It's a good day to have a good day. You seen my gray hair? You seen it? You seen it? Look, it's on the side. Yeah, it's all this stress.
You're too young to have gray hairs, Keaton. You need to get old like me. Folks, remember your allegiance to the Republic and stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.